Hey everybody, Brad Spencer here, as you know, and Dean and I are going to be chatting here in a second about the courage to move into the darkness. And one of the big things that we've been talking about the last couple of days is jumping into stories, getting unstuck, and today it's going to be really fun because we're going to be talking about moving into the darkness.
Come in here. Oh, there we go. There's the man with the plan.
What is up?
Not much, man. Just jamming away. Been busy.
I have to open up these blinds. We're going to be talking about darkness, but I don't have the courage right now. I want to step into the light.
There you go. I like it,
Much
dude.
better.
I like it. Awesome. So so tell me kind of where you came about with the subject, and let's kind of just start out with the story and like recap us off, and then we'll move into whatever we're going to create today. Some good stuff.
Yeah, for sure. The reason why it came up is because I think it follows on with the last two videos that we did. So for those who have not seen those last two videos, you can check them out either on the Facebook page or if you want to go, you can go onto the Online Empire Academy Facebook page. That's where they're going to be posted. The first video was the first video was on basically learning how you're telling yourself a story and getting unstuck and how to know when you're stuck in the first place.
Right.
Second video, and I should share this with other people real quick. Second video was how to know when you're avoiding versus investigating a story that you're telling yourself.
Right.
And what the difference is and which one is going to be more useful, I should say. Because if I say good or bad, you would catch me on that for sure.
Yeah.
So all that being said, this particular so the reason why I wanted this topic is it definitely follows on those two topics big time.
Right.
And so before we kind of get into it, I wanted to just say, if you know anybody who is stuck right now, who's stuck in a spot, whether it's with their marriage, whether it's with their business, whether it's that you know that you're made for something more, but you don't know how to get to that something more, please share this video, or you can go to unstucklab.com, and check out our deep dive training that we do. But please share this video because it really will help either you or someone who needs it. So, all right. So why did I choose the topic 15 minutes ahead of this?
I know, yeah. For everyone watching, let's make sure they know that we're not doing some big, Hollywood production here. This is keeping things sharp and keeping you fresh, which is good. It's good for the spirit. So,
so why did I choose that topic? Going in, having the courage to go into the darkness, because years ago, and I still am in the habit of I realize I'm telling myself a story. I realize I'm stuck where I'm at, and it's because of those stories that I'm telling myself. I realize that avoiding a story is going to keep me where I'm at generally, and investigating a story is at least I'm going to have some kind of ability to see at least what I'm talking about. But going and stepping into the story, into that darkness, into the thing that's causing me so much pain,
right,
has a whole different atmosphere. Is rather than just investigating, because that's kind of more of the first step, why is it important, or is it important to actually dive into the feelings that are within those stories that you have been telling yourself?
Well, that's actually, it's funny you bring that up, because that's actually what the stories are. A story is like an accumulation of a bunch of feelings that turn into something. So in the same way that, like, if you know how a pearl is made, one little grain of sand in the clam or whatever, or oyster or whatever, makes the pearl out of it, right? Like it keeps layering on that stuff to create a pearl. That's what a pearl is, a natural pearl. It's one little tiny grain of sand, one little thing that happened, and we kind of create a pearl out of it as a defense mechanism. But the problem is that by us doing that, we create this big mountain out of a molehill, right? That's why, like, as soon as you start addressing stories, it's never what you think it is. It's never as bad as you think it is. Like, I just had a call right before this call, and I felt myself layering on all these stories, and it's almost like a habit to, like, whenever this subject goes up, to layer on, like, oh my God, it's gonna be so hard, it's gonna be so difficult, like these stories I've told myself for years. And I just, the guy, thankfully, he just called me. Like, I sent him an email this morning. I wasn't really confused about something he asked me for, and he's like, let's just talk this out, because you just don't get the terms and stuff, and that's where the confusion was coming from. But by getting on the phone with him, like, I had like a 10 to 15 minute drive home from lunch meeting, and I was like, oh man, it's gonna be so hard. I have so much more work to do. I got so much to do this week, blah, 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 right? That's the story that I play a lot, is like, I act like I'm busier than I am. And that's the truth at the end of the day. But look at that, right? Like, that turned something big. So by just addressing it and picking up the phone and calling him, and said, because I was actually going to call him after we did our call. And I was like, you know what? That's going to be on my mind while I record, and it's not going to be as good of a recording because, like, part of my attention is going to be diverted. So I was like, dive into it, deal with it. And it's actually like something really simple. It was just like a vocabulary term that I didn't really understand. It's really what the problem was. So it's like, okay, boom, next steps. Here's where I'm at. Here's where I want to be. That was clear. What's the first step? I don't know. So I asked him the term. He explained it to me. And I said, okay, so all I need to do is give you this and this? Is that the next step? He's like, yep, that'll do it. Okay, great. I'll have it today or tomorrow. And that's all it took, because here's the thing. And, that person said hi to you, by the way. Josue said hi to you, by the way. So
cool.
Yeah, he told me to make sure to say hi to you. Yeah. So long story short, the problem though, for me, was that, like, by just having the courage to dive into it and deal with it, it ended up being literally nothing. Like, it was a definition that I didn't understand. That's why we kept running in circles for a while on this one thing. So it's like 3 emails or a 5-minute phone call, what is it? And that's the whole thing about having the courage, because the thing is, courage is not having no fear. Like, a lot of people think courage means I'm not scared of something, right? Like, I'm scared of certain things. Like, there are things that scare me, most of which rely around, like, what if something happens to the baby or whatever, right? But I still act anyway. Like, what if, like, they got in a car accident? People have these fears, and I've met people who are like worry warts, and they do this. They're like, oh, well, what if I get hit by a drunk driver? And it's like, well, can you control that? No. Like, do you have insurance? Yes. Do you go out driving at 3 a.m. when drunks are more likely to be out on the roads? Okay, no. Okay, you're probably not going to get hit by a drunk driver then if you're driving only during the day, right? But they worry about this. Like, I know people like this that are just incessant worriers. If it's not one thing, it's the next. And so it's like the things that worry me with Christina and the baby, it's like, well, my car's in good shape. They know how to drive well. I know where they're going, so they're not going in any, like, crazy situations. So it's probably nothing going to happen. So I'm not going to worry about it. And so, but that's that's what the courage is. That's what courage actually is objectively looking at something and saying, like, I want to dive into this story. Because the question you have to ask, and this is what you'll come to eventually, and you can come to this through religion, through personal development, through anything. But at the end of the day, you have to look and face your own mortality, right? Because almost every irrational fear brings up feelings of, like, oh, I'm going to die. And it might be like, you might feel like you're getting choked. Like, you might feel like stress. Like, a lot of people have like acid reflux, or like they feel like a deep sense in their throat or something like that. All of those are simulations of death. And when you realize that, like, when you actually train your mind to, like, recognize those as feelings, they're just there. They're not really anything, because they even have their own stories attached. Like, oh, if I feel like tension in my chest, like, am I having a heart attack? That's a story. You're probably not having a heart attack. You're probably not going to die if you feel like a like dry mouth because you're afraid of public speaking. You're probably not going to die of that. But that's that part of the brain going wild. And so the courage is to say, you still have that and you act anyway. And that's what it actually is, because you realize, like, you're not going to die. but most people will never address, and it's a little bit morbid, which is hard for people to do, but you have to address your fear of death. Like the moment you are okay with your own death, like someday you will die. It's a 100% certainty at some point you'll die, for all of us. And, I learned this actually from the samurai, right? The samurai, every morning when they were doing their thing, and I don't know what the exact context is, but they would say, today is a great day to die. And that was like their morning drills, because they had to act with no fear, right? So like they're doing their thing as samurai, and that was the thing. Like if you're afraid of your death, you'll hesitate, and therefore you'll probably die because you hesitated in battle or something like that, right? Instead of just going for it and just saying like, look, if I die, well, I die. Like I'm gonna die someday. And people don't address this in the modern world because we have all these things that make us healthy and whatever. And it's like it's just to avoid dealing with the fact that everyone at some level or another, for whatever reason, whatever story, is afraid of their own death. And as soon as you just get okay with the fact, that's when courage happens, because you're like, I can act anyway. Like, yeah, I'm afraid to die. I don't want to die. I don't want bad things to happen or diseases or whatever, but like I make good choices for the most part, and I'm probably not likely to deal with that. And when I do, like if that's what God wills for my life, then that's that. It is what it is. There's nothing I can do about it. So to me, that's the courage. So that's a long answer.
No, it's great. I love it. But like, it's great because, it's true. And like a lot of our fears are because we think that we're going to die or we're going to have some kind of big loss of something. Whether it's being foreclosed on our house, whether it's, losing a family or losing something like that. So someone who say is, I'm just going to use the kind of the cliche, the person who's in their full-time job right now. They don't really have like a real plan to get out. Maybe they have a side business, but they want to be on their own.
Yep.
And they're feeling that the separation or the I don't know what you would say, but like the discrepancy between their expectation of where they want to be,
right,
which is full-time entrepreneur, versus the feelings that they're having right now of being in their full-time job.
Right. So that dissonance, that's the dissonance. Yeah.
So how do they go into the darkness and have the courage to actually go into their story more deeply? And because it doesn't sound like it would be necessarily about death, but how would they?
Oh, it actually
is. They be able to
every one of them is. Well, here's the funny thing, and this is the delusion. This is the delusion that we live in the modern world in Western culture. Like in Eastern cultures, they don't really have this problem as much until they get more exposed to like American ideas, and it starts to happen more. But the thing is, even foreclosure, like it's just a house, right? And then you have all the stories of like, I worked hard for that house, I put money down for that house, et cetera, et cetera. But like losing a house doesn't mean you'll die, but you'll feel that loss. And that's what loss really is it's a simulation of death. Like it's a death of my ego. It's a death of my ideas. It's always death. Like, so what's, if you have a job right now, okay, and like I'm the only entrepreneur in my family, so I know this very well. Like my one side of my family are doctors and professors, and then my other ones have worked in office type, normal corporate jobs forever. Yeah. My sister does that. My brother's going to be a police officer, so he deals with this in a really unique way because he could get killed, whatever. So, long story short, it is about death. So if you face the fact that you're afraid of dying, and it's not necessarily your own mortality. There's different forms of death. There's death of what you think your life should be like. There's death of expectations. That's a huge one. Which is really also a death of like, this is how you thought your life was going to go, and like it didn't go the way you planned, and I feel bad about that, and that holds a lot of people back. Especially like when I've talked to a lot of friends who've transitioned to that job world, and a lot of them hesitate for that reason. Like, I'm 42, and like I didn't think I'd be here right now, and like I gotta go. If I don't do it now, I'm never gonna do it. And it's like, yeah, well, all you have is today. There's no better day than today. But people don't see that, because it's a sunk cost fallacy is the cognitive bias in the brain. People put a lot of weight on everything they've already done when in reality it doesn't matter. from a practical standpoint anyway. So when someone's in a job situation, what I would really address with them is looking at the fact that, you know, the probability is if you go out and start a business that you'll make a lot more money when that business is successful than if you're successful at a job. I think everyone would agree with that. You'll make a lot more money as a successful entrepreneur, as you will, a successful employee. Okay. Now, if your business fails, the worst that could possibly happen is you lose all your stuff. You know, that's actually the worst thing that can happen. You're probably not going to die more. You're physically not going to die. You know, your wife, if you have a good relationship, will support you more often than not. And a lot of men I know deal with this. When I talk to men about this, they're afraid, like, what if my wife leaves or whatever? And it's more like, oh, sorry. Little camera fail there. That'll go with the bloopers. Yeah, so that's one thing that a lot of people are afraid of, right? And I've talked to a lot of people about this, so I've seen this story repeated a million times. And that is the problem, is everything you think is going to happen probably won't, okay? And that's something that I would tell everybody is like write down all those fears. What are you really afraid of, right? It's not the stuff. A lot of it's actually in your own head. It's not real when you actually address the stories. And this is why you need, quote unquote, courage to go into it, because the thing is, everything wants to fight you to keep you where you are. Your entire biology is oriented like that to keep you safe. What you know is safe by definition. Even when it sucks, it's still safe.
It's still safe. So, yeah, I mean, like I have a cousin who we were best friends growing up, and like this guy is the most well-spoken, smart as heck guy.
Right.
Yet he still lives literally because he has this story in his head that he's the victim of, you know, systemic racism. He's the victim of his circumstance. He's the victim of all of these different things with his mom and everything, like with his mom and his dad and everything. And I'm going, dude, we both had similar backgrounds. I mean, we both had, you know, backgrounds of alcoholism and abuse and everything. Same thing. And how is it that I was able to escape this and you're not? And it's really just, it's him buying the story and not having the courage to go in and hopefully he does. I always pray for him, but to go in and see that is a protection mechanism. He knows that. He's comfortable with it, even though he complains about it all the time.
Well, a lot of people do that, right? Like, it's easier most people would rather be in familiar but sucky situations than unfamiliar good ones. And by definition, when someone's in poverty, because the thing is, and this is the deviousness of the story, right? There is truth to it. There is enough factual evidence that if you like analyzed it one way, you could decide that like, okay, it's like some of those things are facts. And like we talked about that in the first video, right? Where there's facts and then there's the story about the facts that you tell yourself. Yes. Does this stuff happen? Absolutely. There's data galore about certain things in poverty. Yes, you weren't exposed to books at a young age. Yes, you weren't exposed maybe to mentors who could get out of that situation. Yes, you dealt with abuse and drug problems and this, that, and the other thing, right? That is all facts. Now, the only thing you can try, and I just read this morning, and I love it. It's such a great way to talk about it. In Viktor Frankl and Man's Search for Meaning, he said the only thing, like everything you think you have can be taken away from you. The only thing that cannot be taken away from you is your ability and your choice to how you react to it, right? And as soon as you realize that, everything is just stuff. Like, this is a house. Like, this is my car. Like, there's other cars. There's other less expensive cars. So if I lost that car, somebody hit me, you know, driving like an idiot, then they wreck my car. I can't control that. What am I going to do? Sit in my house all day? And that's the difference, right? But it's courage comes from like looking at it objectively. See, a lot of people think courage is this big dramatic, you know, like Braveheart type of crap. And it's just not. It's like, I'm scared of the same things everyone else are. I'm scared if something happened to Christina. I'm scared if something happened to the baby. You know, we dealt with, he had a small brain bleed when he was young. And so we had all these MRIs, and we're in those hospitals where all the kids with cancer and stuff are. And you see people that are the same age, you know, fathers the same age as me with a kid that got no hair. and this other stuff. I mean, it's horrible. Like the worst possible fears. It's like those sad commercials, but in real life, you know, and I had to process all that. Thankfully not from observing it, not going through it myself, but then you realize like, wow, like this is real. This is not just a commercial or a sad story that someone told you on Facebook, right? So you realize that wherever you are is there, you know, like it's just where you're at. This is where you're at. And I just was talking to my friend at lunch. The reason he asked me to lunch was because he dealt with an employee, unfortunately, that made a mistake and cost him 6 figures of recording footage that was like corrupted on a hard drive, and they didn't back it up. So he had to come up, reshoot all of that. So he had to eat $100 something thousand. Like it was ridiculous, right?
Wow.
And he's like, you know, this is what I'm going to do. This is what's up. I had to pay for it. You know, I didn't have that much cash sitting around. But I ate it. I moved on. This is what I'm thinking. And I was wanting to know if you would, you know, like, do you think my pitch is good? And that's what he asked me. He just asked me, you know, bought me lunch and asked me to help him with his pitch. And so I did. And been a good friend, helped me out a lot of times. So yeah, no problem. He's a good friend. But like, you sit there and you realize like he was okay with it. And I looked at him, I was like, you know, like, you're not stressed. He's like, yeah, dude, it's just a number. It's just a number. That's where I'm at. Like, but I can get out of it, you know, so.
It's because, but it's based, you know, that the fact that he's able to do that is because he's went through that process of really examining and going through and seeing like what are the facts, what is the story that he's telling. I mean, the $100,000+ is nothing to be just like whatever. But you know, it could be. I mean, you and I have gone through different things where, you know, it could be a lot worse. Like it could be like. It's so neat when you go into this, when you're able to take the courage to go into the darkness, because you start seeing that a lot of it's not necessarily, you know, this is bad, this is good, this could be worse, it could be better. It's more of like, this is what it is. I'm going to look at the facts of it. Is this working or not? Yeah. If it's working is this useful or not? Is this working for me? And it allows you to then dive in more to see what are the alternatives, what are the alternative stories that I want to get into, that I want to have with this. In fact, like I just did a video yesterday where, you know, a lot of people say, oh, given the entrepreneur whole thing, I want to be a full-time entrepreneur. And you go and dig into the story of why they want to do that. And oftentimes it's just because they want to be financially free or something like that. You don't have to be an entrepreneur to be financially free. Like if I had known, you know, back in the day what I know now, I would have been like, dude, I'm living off of say $4,000, $5,000 a month at the time, and I'm making you know $10,000. So that's an extra like $4,000 or $5,000 per month. Yeah. I'm like, I could have just put those into cash flow assets like crazy for a few years. I'm done. Like after 5 years, you know, like
crazy, isn't it? Like, isn't it funny how that is though? Like when you look at, because that's the thing people don't realize, the courage to objectively look at your stuff forces you to realize that most of the things you want is because you don't want to feel something else. Correct. And this is a huge awareness for people. What you want, like to give you an example, our budget to live on right now is lower than it's been in years. Like what we spend on a monthly basis to get by, right? It's a lower amount of money, like our like minimum, whatever you want to call it, like a nut, I guess, right? You know, and it's been lower because, you know, we've cut things out. You know, we don't do some of the things that we used to do, blah, blah, blah. It just goes down a little bit of trickle. And it's actually less now because, you know, we don't have formula and stuff for the baby. So he's eating more and like having a good time and whatever. And, you know, the funny thing about it is I've never been happier, right? Because like I used to buy certain things years ago. And I mean, I've been in business for 10 years. I've experienced almost everything there is, you know, to experience. And, you know, when you get past the stage of like wanting to buy stuff, because this is what I think about every time people are like, oh, I want to buy this car. It's like, why do you want to buy that car? Do you really enjoy that car, or do you enjoy what you think that car says? You know, I mean, like you got that big monster van, and I'm like, man, that van is badass. Like that is a big honking tank of a van, you know? And like I see certain
and
cars,
some people like
some people are like, I don't want a van. Like, oh, I hate vans. And I'm like, dude, okay, that's what you don't like. But, you know, like, that's a badass van.
Yeah.
Because I like vans. But, you know, the joke that people have, and this is the funny part, is a lot of people, everything is out of resistance. And I can tell as soon as I meet a person what's real and what's out of resistance is something else. And that's not smug. I've done it more than anyone, so I am fully qualified to just say I know they will never give you what you want. Like, it will never ever happen. It looks like I lost you, but hopefully you're still watching. You know, and that's the unfortunately the part about let's see if I can bring Dean back. Looks like he climbed off. There we go. Looks like we're adding him in. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, sorry. My 12 o'clock is calling me right now. So, but
cool,
anyway,
cool.
So yeah, I love this. I love this. So, you know, I just really appreciate all of this. You know, this series that we're doing, and you know, for all of those who are out there who are getting just a ton of value out of this, make sure to share this. Share this with others first and foremost, and then join our deep dive training that we're having.
Yep.
So if you go to www.unstucklab.com, it's a free training. Where we're going to go a lot deeper into all of this stuff. Plus, there's going to be Q&A, so you can ask any questions you want. And Brad will actually take that scenario and
rock and roll.
I just happened again.
It's all good.
We'll take that scenario and really go into it with you on that deep dive training, which is going to be awesome. So unstucklab.com. Yeah, I am excited to see how that's going to go. That's something that I'm definitely looking forward to. So, so if you guys have any questions, make sure to have them ready for that deep dive training, and we'll see you in the next one. Brad, go ahead and close us out, man.
Awesome, man. Yeah, guys, it's just the courage. It's the story. Like when you the courage comes from just taking action. That's all it really takes, is to just dive into it. There's nothing gonna hurt you, and it'll actually realize like everything you're afraid of for the most part is a lot less scary than what you think it might be. Most things in life like that are like that. You know, the real stuff is the stuff that if you're gonna worry about something, even then don't worry about it. You know, because there's nothing you can do about worrying. Doesn't do anything. It's like rocking in a chair. A lot of movement, no action. So that's all I got to say, man. Have a good one. Thanks for doing the call with me.
Cool. Awesome, man. We'll talk soon.
All right. Bye.